There you are, walking today. We're out in the park today. All right, so that was me the first time I did Damascus, and just gotta say real quick, this video is for entertainment purposes only. You know, don't try any of that stuff at home. I was kind of, young and dumb at the time. But anyway, it was pretty interesting because, there's so many commercially produced Damascus steels out there anymore. And it's just me kind of talking off the cuff, just my thoughts, because I really don't know what would be the implications of doing this over the long term, but if it would be hazardous or anything like that. But the reason why I don't do Damascus anymore is because, when I put that borax on that metal, well, first of all, when I put the borax on the metal, it looks like an orange fruit candy. I mean, it is just like, it looks like an orange sickle. It's beautiful. And I take that metal out and I hit it. And the first time I get a weld, I'm just kind of talking off of memories here, but there's like a little line that comes in along the side of the billet. And it's like a little white line that forms, and it's gone. It forms. You can see it kind of form for a moment, then it disappears, and that's the welds coming together. And it's all I can say. It's like magic. It's like magic. It's like the whole like myth of the magic sword or the magic dagger. When man first went from bronze and began to actually use iron, and then maybe went from iron to the first carburized metals, and then mixed the metals together to give it more mileage. I mean, it must have been like first few times seeing that, it must have been like, oh my God, it's like alchemy. It's like turning the base material into this usable good. It's magic. It's magic. And but I'll tell you what happened. And Wayne Goddard wrote about this, and I experienced it firsthand. Was when I put that borax on. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but that borax is like sliding between those wafers of metal and off the sides, and it's going onto the brick. And I began to see these little pits form in the brick. And over the endeavor of welding this billet, it would actually get onto the brick, and in time, it would actually turn the brick into like a lake of fire. I mean, it looks like this glowing mass. I'm like, whoa, that doesn't look so much like brick anymore. That's like this big mass of lava, which, I don't know. Anytime usually metals turn white, that's not good, because I think that could be very dangerous. And so I went ahead and took the piece of the metal rod I had laying around, because I weld metal rods to these billets to weld them. And I jam it in there, and it's almost like not quite syrup, but like a taffy, that's like candy. And I pull this thing out, and it's glowing on the end of my metal rod. It's like glass. It's like hot glass. It's like burning hot glass. And this stuff when it hardened, it turned black, and then when I would break it, it'd be like obsidian. I was basically making like obsidian in a forge, inadvertently making obsidian by having this mixture of borax eat this fire brick at the higher temperature. And it was pretty wild. It was pretty cool. But I'll tell you what, in the end, I went back to I went back. First I fire bricked the forge, and then went back to just using it for heat treatment. But pretty crazy stuff. And that's why I don't do Damascus, is because it just does that to the inside of the forge. And I really don't know what the implications are by having nearly this orange white hot hole of whatever it is. I don't know what happens if that sits too long. I don't know what happens if that gets too much borax in it. I really don't know that what goes on later with that. I mean, is it going to go up in my face? I don't know. That's why I, say, don't do any of that stuff. This is just me talking about my own experience of making Damascus. But what I noticed was that a lot of these Damascus guys, in videos, were using these hydraulic presses. And to me, I'm thinking, well, if I had a heat source that, was its own separate heat source, and I had maybe like a Paragon or another forge to do heat treat, then I had its own separate heat source to do forging and heating, and I had another heat source just to heat Damascus, and just dedicate to doing the actual billet, and then you take the billet after it's cleaned off, move it into the regular forge to draw it out and forge it, and then actually take it to grind it, and then use yet another more controllable heat source for heat treat. It's probably easier for these guys just to go ahead, make Damascus, precision cut it, precision grind it, and then market these bar stocks to be made on a stock removal basis. It's probably, to me, it's more easier just to buy it than it is to make it. I think a lot of the artistry behind making it's like, oh wow, you did that, oh that's awesome. Now somebody says, oh that's pretty cool, get that off the internet. It's just like, I don't know, it's just, I remember a long time ago Wayne Goddard wrote about people who hand rub finish, and how a hand rub knife leaves him relatively calm, as to where a Damascus knife, it's exciting to see. And I used to say that a lot of these knives that were Damascus, to me, like I used to say, they make my eyeballs melt out of my sockets. They're just like, oh my god, they made that. And there's some stuff coming in that's not so much money that looks, I'll be honest, some of the stuff coming from overseas, it looks just as good as a lot of these guys that were doing bladesmithing and whatnot. I don't think they still can really get their fire blue game down. I really don't think they can get their pearl game down, but it looks really good. It looks good. The stuff coming in overseas looks pretty good. And to me, it's just like, now I'm just kind of like going, it's kind of the opposite for me now. It's like, where Damascus used to be really exciting and pattern welds used to be really exciting. Now I see, oh wow, that's a pretty nice, hand rubbed finish. They did like on that, like similar to painting, and made that knife look really creamy. Oh, that looks really good. I'm kind of more, it's the opposite, where hand rub finish is like, oh that's cool, and I see a Damascus knife and it's like, oh yeah, there's about 20 dozen of those on the market right now. So it's kind of what's gone on, where back in the day, it's you show somebody this thing you made, and yeah, I made that 100%, man. I started with bar stocks, and I pounded it together, then I shaped it, and then I ground it and made it a knife, and then ferric chlorided it, and had to take into account the diminishing dimensions from edging the knife, and either tape off the holes for the pivot, or either tape off the holes for the fasteners, because I don't want to create any distortions in the handle holes. Or I don't know, I just think a lot of those days are kind of over, and but that's why I wouldn't want to really mess with Damascus anymore, unless I had an actual shop. I had an actual ventilated system I can use. I had a safe heat source and a safe way of pressing it together, and then I had a safe way of drawing it out. Back in the day, though, but back in the old school days, these guys, they would take these things, and there's one guy, he would take this stuff, and he would start with a billet, and he would basically take a 2-pound cross peen hammer, and I don't know, he'd go bink, 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 just a few hits here and there, and get them to close. And he would take it over to a little giant power hammer and just draw it out. Just all, and then he would kind of, get it flat, and then he would start his actual blade shape and forge process. And I was just like, amazing work. And I tried to do that. When I tried to do that, all right, I was like, I'm not having such a easy. I did it with like a 6-pound sledge on a small handle to get those wafers to weld together. I was just like, and I was putting my back into it. And now you can imagine, of course, anybody who's any type of forging, when I'm done with that, there's all these hammer marks, just like, it looks like the moon. It's just like, so now, okay, cool. And I did kind of, but when I went on that second layer count, I was able to actually kind of get a lot of those out, flatten that out and draw it out. This is all being done both with hammers, by the way, because I started hitting flatter, so I didn't make as bad hammer marks, because I realized by then, okay, every hammer mark I make from here on out, it's going to be like an hour's work, and it's going to reduce the thickness, it's going to mess up the symmetry. So I began to hit it together. When I had that second layer count, and that thing was about maybe like, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch thick, by 2 inches by 1.5 inches wide. It looked almost like a factory billet of steel. If you look close, you can see the actual Damascus patterns in it. I should have stopped there. instead of getting all crazy and hitting that with a drill and trying to do a teardrop pattern. In fact, I might actually do like a resin pour and take that piece and stick it maybe in as an embellishment on a folder or something later, just to kind of for fun, just to kind of so I could pull it out and look at it and look at my first Damascus billet. I got home, my dad, while I was work, etched it 100% ferric chloride in the baggie. He just stuck it in there and etched it. He said it turned right away. It's like, no, I kind of wanted to do that on my own. Thank you. But yeah, I could have actually had a good knife with just a doubled up 12 layer count. And it would have looked just as good ground. I mean, it had a really cool swirly pattern. And I kind of don't think personally that those higher layer counts to me, in my mind, don't really do a knife a lot of justice. I kind of think it takes away from the interesting parts of the pattern, and at a certain point, it's said by a lot of bladesmiths that it does kind of look, like homogeneous. It's actually like just a gray metal. It's well etched regular steel at that point. There's not really a pattern to it. It's just not interesting. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on Damascus, why I don't do it. But it was a fun learning experience. It's just the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze. So yeah, that's how that goes. So anyway, yeah, it's been pretty fun. And when I said I'm going back in the past, I'm going back in the past with actual knife making. I'm not going back in the past with the politics. I'm not talking anymore about politics. Okay, I mean knife making is barely even a justified use of my time as it is. So I really wouldn't even want to drag any other stuff into that. If I'm out here walking my dogs, I just kind of do this to create content. But really, what I rather do is just listen to my my financial podcasts with my earbuds, learn a little bit about that. So, but I gotta make content for the channel, create content for the channel, and justify having all this equipment in my garage, and at least not to the world, but justify it in my own mind. And I think that redoing the shop and cleaning that up, and if I went back and looked at the old videos and just looked at how horrible it looked. I got that thing out there and I got it done pretty quick. The only holdback I had was just waiting for the fabricator to bend that metal at a 90 degree. It was already done before that, and once I got that in, it looked a lot better than I thought it would. I thought, okay, well, this is gonna look good, and it actually looked a little, except for that little bead of silicone between the two. I kind of put that in there, but other than that, it's I thought I got a pretty good fitment. I took very good measurements. I got really good gaps on that piece of metal. It turned out great. The fabricator did a great job. I lost my dad to COVID, and I almost died from COVID too. The second time I had COVID, it's like I was in the front yard. The second time I was in the front yard, hedging bushes at 3:00 in the afternoon on August, the last day before I tested negative. I was doing really, really good. I was doing really good the second time. The first time, that was a doozy. Then I got out the other side of it. Thought my dad was going to turn around, and within 72 hours just went to hell in a handbasket. And we thought we were going to take him home. We thought it was we thought it was going to be good to go. This is 2020, so yeah, we're looking at 3 years ago. And I used to go out there every day after work. I just go out there and just stand there. Just a trip. It's a trip. Whenever I don't know, anybody else out there may have good, bad experiences with their parents. I don't know if whatever, but I tell you what, it doesn't matter what the relationship is. Somebody loses a parent. I don't know. I'm going to say they're going to feel it. They're going to feel it. So, but, it's a little bit of mixed emotions because it was so hard to get around out in the garage, but with his passing, I'm able to do some of the things before that I had a harder time doing. Like I was able to clean everything off of the counters. I was able to clean everything off of the toolbox. I have a lot more work room. I can take things apart. I can assemble things a lot easier. I have maybe a place to sit now. I can make another table, temporarily set it up in the middle if I wanted to, and then fold it up when I'm done. So, you know, there was really, if you think about it now, there's really no excuses now. But I just kind of see, you know, I just kind of seen what the knife world was like. And so, you know, it's more, I'm in that hobby section. I'm not so much in the business section. And I think it actually, if it were to actually take off, it would be more from content creation than would be from anything else, you know. And if somebody wanted to buy a knife from me, they're going to pay a lot of money. They're going to pay a lot of money to make it worth my while. For the time I put into that, and, you know, and it's like, well, I don't like this design with this color. And the answer is no. No, I can't. I can't do it in the color. I made this design. It's the way I wanted to make it. I made it because I actually intended to carry it myself. And it's going to be sold as a used knife if I decided to sell it. And it has to really be worth my while to sell. We're talking over $10,000. This is going to be it's going to be my little kudos, you know, like pull something out, cut a piece of string or do something. Wow, that's a pretty cool knife. Yeah, you like that? I made that knife. Isn't that neat? Yeah, I did this to it. That's just how I ground this out, and I heat treated the steel, and wow, that's so cool. It brings me pleasure to carry something I made. And if somebody else, you know, wants the pleasure to carry something I made, they have to pay a lot. They have to pay a lot for me to go into my collection, pull out something I made that I carry myself every day and give that up. Because that's my time, and my time is worth a lot of money. I remember a long time ago, somebody tried to ask how many hours it takes. So why would somebody ask how many hours it takes? Well, then they could put me on a pay scale. They could say, well, we only want to give you $15 an hour to make this knife. So 120. Okay, so it's maybe $120 to make that knife. And that really, you think about it, I wouldn't sit there and let somebody I won't let anybody put a cap on my pay. I'm going to determine what I get paid per hour. It's going to be a lot. And if they don't want to pay me that per hour, and they don't want it bad enough, that knife would stay in my collection, because I really don't plan on selling anything I make. It's just going to be made for me. All right, so anyway, don't worry about the haters. Just let the haters worry about you, okay? And hopefully I'll be making some more videos, and I'm just coming out here and, okay? All right, bye.